Tēnā koutou katoa, everyone. My name is David Kerr, and I'm currently the chair of the Board of Directors. I'd like to welcome you all to this 20th annual general meeting of Ryman Healthcare as a listed company. Both the board and the management team really enjoy the engagement with yourselves, the shareholders. Today represents a very significant milestone for us. Those 20 years as a listed company have flown by, so I'm really delighted that so many of you are able to join us here at Evelyn Page Retirement Village in Orewa here today. I'd also like to thank the residents of the Evelyn Page for welcoming us into their home, so they've been very generous. So Jill Clark, where's Jill? Can I see Jill? Oh, there's Jill. Jill and her team do a fabulous job here, and this has been a great success as a village, and it opened about a decade ago, and thank you, Jill, for your warm welcome here today. We really appreciate that. So just looking around, I can confirm that we have a quorum present, and I'd also like to offer a warm welcome to everyone who's watching on our webcast. We have a number of motions to approve today. Could I ask that any shareholder who's seconding a motion, could they please clearly state their name for the record? And in accordance with the company's constitution and the NZX listing rules, voting on resolutions will be carried out by way of a poll. Voting on resolutions for this annual meeting will be undertaken electronically or on your allocated piece of paper. Each share held by a shareholder counts as one vote. The results of that poll will be available on the NZX later today. So my fellow directors and myself will vote all discretionary proxies we have received in favour of the resolutions as set out in the notice of meeting. You should all have either an electronic voting card or a piece of paper that has been set up for you when you registered. I'm assuming everybody has exactly that. Is there anybody lacking in those options? No? Great. If you put your hand up, we will get someone to help. Very good. So look, we're going to start with some overviews from myself and Gordy, and then you'll hear from some of our directors as well. During the meeting, there will be time for questions from yourselves as shareholders, or in other words, our business owners. If you have a question, just if you hold up your attendance card, and if you can wait until someone brings you a microphone so that all of us in the room can hear you, and also people watching on the live stream can also hear. If you're a member of the media or you're not a shareholder and you have a question, please talk to us after the meeting. We're very happy to answer any questions you have at that time. So in addition to the delicious morning tea treats that you're going to have at the end of this meeting, we're offering you a chance to tour the village and also to have your blood pressure checked by the Stroke Foundation. Yes, I might take a break and do that now. The foundation has been our charity partner for the past year, and in the coming year we'll be fundraising for Breast Cancer Foundation both here in New Zealand and in Australia. As part of the agreement with the Stroke Foundation, we funded the purchase of the stroke van that you can see outside. And over the past 12 months, the van has travelled the length of New Zealand and has taken blood pressure recordings on more than 10,000 people. And these recordings are undertaken free of charge, of course. And we've agreed to support the van for another 3 years, and we're funding an identical van in Victoria as well. About 1% of the people who've used the van have discovered they have critically high blood pressure and were clearly in danger of either a heart attack or a stroke. So we know it is truly a lifesaver. So help yourself to a check from the stroke team after the meeting. We've also arranged a tour of Evelyn Page's men's shed for anyone who's interested. They're toy makers, and they supply Starship, and they've sent toys to Neve, the first baby, and also to the recent royal arrivals in London. So this is a picture of them on the screen now. And as a special treat, we've also arranged blackjack bowler and Commonwealth Games medalist Wendy Jensen, who's kindly come along today to provide some bowling lessons for any of you who are interested afterwards. So you just need to roll on up to the green after the meeting. Now, before we get into the formalities, I'd just like to take an opportunity to introduce the board and our team. So if we start at the far end, Jo Appleyard. Jo Appleyard is a partner with Chapman Tripp, and she's a particularly skilled litigator and advocate specialising in commercial, employment and resource management law. Her skills are sought after by many of the larger corporates nationally, and her experience in relation to civil disputes is particularly wide and varied, as she acts on all manner of commercial issues. So Jo's been a member of the New Zealand Markets Disciplinary Tribunal since 2011, and is a member of our Health and Safety Subcommittee, our Clinical Governance Subcommittee, and the Development and Construction Subcommittees. Quite busy, Jo, isn't it, really? And coming towards me next from Jo is Warren Bell. So Warren is a very experienced public and private company director. He's currently the chairman of Hallenstein Glassons, who operate both here in New Zealand as well as in Australia. He's also the chair of St George's Hospital, which is the largest private hospital in the South Island, and he's a director of a number of private companies, and he's chair of our Audit and Financial Risk Committee, along with being deputy chairman. And then next is George Savides. George Savides lives in Melbourne, and he has 20 years' experience in the Australian healthcare industry. He was for 14 years the managing director of Medibank, Australia's largest health insurer. This means he's got really wide knowledge of both the systems and the structures that underpin the Australian healthcare sector. And he's got extremely good connections with people relevant to this company, both at state level and at federal level in Australia. He's the chairman of Next Science and deputy chair of Australian broadcaster SBS and a director of IAG. George is a fellow of the Australian Institute of Directors, and he chairs our Clinical Governance Committee. George has made a huge contribution since joining us 5 years ago. Then Claire. Claire Higgins is a professional director, and she's a consultant who also has extensive board experience in Australia and New Zealand. She's had extensive experience in senior management roles with BHP and One Steel. And she's based in Melbourne also, where she's chair of REI Superannuation Limited. Claire chairs our Health and Safety Committee, and you can see that with industry experience at companies such as One Steel and BHP, she's got a great feel and knowledge around health and safety. And this health and safety is an area we regard as being very important. Going to the far end, we have Anthony Lees. So Anthony joined our board last year. He's the managing director of Lees Construction, which he founded in 1995. He's built it into a leading commercial construction contractor. Anthony is a former chair of the New Zealand Registered Master Builders Association. He chairs our recently created Development and Construction Subcommittee of the board, and has really added very significant construction expertise to the board. Now, there is an invisible person, Jeff Cumming. I'm not sure, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So Jeff rejoined the board following the retirement of Kevin Hickman. Jeff can't be with us in person today, but he's joining us via a link from Canada, and we can bring him up on the screen if that was required. He has been a long-term supporter and shareholder in the company. Jeff is an economist by training, and he's got more than 30 years' experience as a chief executive, director, and investor. And I think he's served on more than 25 corporate boards in a range of companies. He's Canada-based, but he's a New Zealand citizen, and he is with us in person the vast majority of the time. In fact, just yesterday and the day before we had board meetings, and Jeff was there on Skype actively contributing. So the technology worked, which always amazes me, but it did work, and it was very valuable. And so his input's really important. So then I just noticed looking out that Bill Rayner is here. Bill, can you stick your hand up? Thank you, Bill. Good to see you. Bill's from Grey Power. We've had a long and very supportive relationship with Grey Power over a good many years, and it's good to see you here today, Bill. And then with me, of course, we have Gordy McLeod, our Chief Executive, whom many of you will know, and just beyond him, Dave Bennett, our Chief Financial Officer. So, the notice of meeting has been distributed and accepted as read, as in accordance with normal practice. So, are there any apologies that anybody would wish to register? I'll take the silence to indicate no, so I do not need to move the motion relating to apologies. And we don't have any submitted, fine. So, that's good, so we don't need to move or second that motion. Moving along, I'll just go to the annual report. So this document, of which we are very proud, we've prepared this using the integrated reporting framework. This year, the title of All About People is carefully devised. We know as a board that if we look after our residents and our staff very well, everything else that we hope for as a company will follow. So you've heard us talk before that the care we provide must be, in the words of Kevin Hickman, our co-founder, good enough for mum. It's what the board and the management team believe is critical and what makes us, I believe, a success as a company. There's nothing more important, really. It's a core value, and I believe it's one of the reasons we have been successful. So when you review this annual report, you could say that we're an organically sustainable business. As you know, we only grow organically. We don't grow by acquisition. The report sets out the story of the company and talks about how we have used the 6 capitals to create value over time. And you can see those demonstrated on pages 32, 33, these pages here. So the capitals we report on are our people, how we care for them, how we develop and learn, how we create and nurture communities, how we create financial certainty, how we share our knowledge, and how we plan to continue to build our economic assets and care for the environment. It also explains in the report how our model works and how we intend to grow using our resources sustainably and continuing to put care at the heart of everything that we do. We always have, and we're going to continue to do so. As I said before, it's what makes us successful. I'm going to move that the annual report and the auditor's report be taken as read. So I'm moving the motion. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you very much, sir. Could I just have your name?
Graham Howard, G-R-A-E-M-E.
G-R-A-E-M-E. Howard, seconded the motion. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? I declare the motion carried. Thank you. As I mentioned a moment ago, it's 20 years since we listed on the NZX, and you can see the 20th birthday cake over here that we've had presented to us. I've just reread recently the prospectus that we launched, and apart from some quite serious ageing changes in this director's picture, not a lot has changed. We set out back then, even with an airbrush here, we set out back then to become the preeminent provider and operator of healthcare facilities for older people. The aim was to provide tailored care in integrated villages that meant residents could stay in the village safe in the knowledge that their health needs would be managed to the highest possible standard. You might be interested to know that the share market listing also almost didn't happen. In fact, the very first attempt in 1997 to list did not succeed, and we had to pull the float. And then 2 years later, in 1999, almost on the eve of the listing, the Australian backers got cold feet. This is not about Australia, I'm sorry. It almost got cold feet and tried to pull the listing at the very last moment. So it's been a remarkable success story, more so than I think anyone involved at the time could have imagined. We were pretty unloved when we listed. The offer was undersubscribed and almost didn't happen. A lot of people wrote us off, but John and Kevin and the rest of the team kept on going. They predicted a bright future for integrated aged care companies in the prospectus. They were thinking long-term back then. Their horizon was more than 30 years out, during which the population aged 65 and over would more than double. So I suspect the so-called elevator pitch, which is the description of what a company does in the time restraint of an elevator ride, is that we look after older people and we try to do this better and better every moment. So while the intentions of the prospectus have not changed, the size and scale of Ryman has. In 1999, when we floated, we had 8 villages worth $53 million and a little over 1,000 residents and around 530 staff. Today we have 36 villages, 11,200 residents and 5,500 staff. Our total assets are worth $6.7 billion and we have net assets of $2.2 billion. We raised $25 million in that hard-won IPO to reinvest in the business, and our market cap at that time was $135 million. Today the market cap is well over $6 billion. In 1999, Ryman needed capital to grow, which our IPA shareholders really provided to us. At the time, we thought that the $25 million investment would give us the impetus to expand into the North Island, and we sure did expand. We now have a total of 23 North Island villages and another 6 in the pipeline. We've continued to focus on our planning being long-term and our thinking being long-term and not fallen into the trap of short-term decision-making. However, it's worth spelling out today that at this 20-year mark, what an extraordinary one we have really had over the last 2 decades. For those of you brave enough to buy in at the IPO and who've held on ever since, and I know there are a fair few of you, your shares are worth more than 40 times what you paid when you first invested. As well as that capital growth, you've enjoyed a growing stream of dividends. Since 1999, we've paid out dividends of more than $800 million, always equal to 50% of the underlying profit. That ability to return a sustainable profit while continuing to provide the very best of care proves that profit and purpose are comfortable companions. And today, because of our success, more than 1 million Kiwis have a stake in this company through KiwiSaver. So our corporate success today will help working people of today build the foundation for a comfortable retirement. This very significant growth has been funded by our efficient use of the capital that we recycle from the sell down of our villages, and by the continued support of our banks, who have really been long-term partners alongside yourselves, the shareholders. Remarkably, we have not been back to shareholders for more capital than the original $25 million that was contributed in 1999. That investment has allowed us to provide homes and care for more than 30,000 people over the last 20 years, not to mention creating jobs and fulfilling careers for many more. I believe we've been a success because we've never lost sight of what we were set up to do, and that's to provide the best of care for older people. We've been blessed with a team of people who have kindness and compassion in their DNA and have built a wonderful culture of care. We've built superb assets, valued, as I said, at more than $6 billion, that will provide care for generations to come. They include more than 3,000 rest home, hospital and dementia care beds. That growth in our asset base hasn't happened by chance. By putting aside that 50% of the underlying profit each year, it enables us to reinvest in growth. And we built a large quality portfolio of villages, which really are a springboard for the future. It's a legacy of compounding investment that we believe will continue to deliver into the future. Of course, we're proud of this. I also have the sense that this is just really the beginning. We've come a long way since 1999, but I have the real sense that we're really just starting to get going. It's pretty early days in terms of the ageing population. The first of the baby boomers that Kevin and John were gearing up for are now only just entering their 70s. So we're expecting them to arrive in large numbers from about 2025 onwards. So we see an extraordinary growth potential ahead and huge potential to continue to evolve our model. Of course, there's no shortage of competition, and to be honest, we feel competition is good for us. But we do enjoy some key competitive advantages. So these would include, firstly, the quality of our people and our culture and our commitment to high quality care and continuous innovation. The second thing I'd identify would be our fair terms for our residents, including fixed fees and indeed the lowest fees of the bigger players in the market. Thirdly, our reputation, our loyal residents and their families, and the high degree of trust they have in us. Fourthly, our business model and the history of long-term investment, which enables us to build and recycle the capital efficiently and gives residents and their families the certainty that we will be here for the long haul and not suddenly evaporate like some operators have done. We want to build as many Ryman communities in New Zealand and Australia, bringing care, comfort and security wherever we can. We want our team to get home safe each day to their families, and we want our staff to love working for us and to build their careers with us. It's a statement of the obvious, possibly, but our staff and management are critical, really, to our success. The management team, in particular, deserve acknowledgement. I've just had a couple of days of board meeting, and they truly embrace the culture. They are what you might describe as being a real force for good. They love the purpose of what this company does. They treat the money and the allocation of capital with great caution. It's your money, not theirs. And they manage to display the right balance between confidence and paranoia. By that I mean they demonstrate the confidence in the business model and the way in which we operate and the care we provide, but they're also aware and paranoid about the challenges, such as changes in the economy, changes in the political environment, the risks of a care crisis, the challenges of staying in front of the competitors in the sector. So our social purpose is to meet the need for care for older people, and the demand for this is only going to grow as the population changes. So to come back to the present, I'd remind you we reported another solid year when we released the annual result back in May. Audited underlying profit rose 11.5% to $227 million. Reported IFRS profit, which of course includes unrealised valuations, declined 16% to $326 million. Now, that is actually most easily explained on page 77 of the annual report, where you see that the gains that are a result of the revaluations of $185 million in 2018, that's last year, and $102.4 million in 2019. And you'll recall that the 2018 full year result was boosted by changes to the independent valuation assumptions, but there were no significant changes to the assumptions in the 2019 year. And so although the value of the investment properties increased, the value increase was not as great as the year before because the changes in the assumptions were not repeated. The full year dividend, as you will be aware, was lifted to 22.7 cents per share, in line with the growth in the underlying profit. Our net assets reached $2.2 billion, up from 1.94, and importantly, our operating cash flows rose 15% to $401 million. With cash receipts from residents exceeding $1 billion for the first time. That allowed us to invest $552 million in new and existing villages during the year, up from the earlier year of $478. The underlying profit of $227 million reflect how the company actually has been trading, and it's the way we use, it's the number we use to determine our dividend. So the result came within the range that we had set at the half-year result, which was between $223 and $238 million, and was in line with the market consensus. The medium-term target, which I'm sure you're really interested in, continues to be a doubling of our underlying profit every 5 years. This means we'll be able to increase the underlying profit by approximately 15% each year over the medium term. We told our audience at the May full year results that we fell short of that 15% long-term target for two reasons. Firstly, we took some longer-term strategic decisions to reinvest in the business, which we believe will help performance in the out years. These include a nurse pay settlement that added $5 million to our wages bill, and this was important as our nurses are a really critical part of our care package. Secondly, the resales volumes were flat. As you know, it's hard to predict the number of resales we get in the short term, but we expect the volumes to grow in the medium term in line with the steady portfolio growth that has occurred over recent years. We're very focused on growth, but not just for growth's sake. We're not interested in compromising that core value of putting the resident first. So we think it was a solid result given the decline in the Melbourne housing market and a cooling off in the New Zealand market, more particularly maybe in Auckland. So despite these developments, the villages remained in demand during the year. Occupancy at our established care centres was at 97%, and while resales were flat, we sold almost all our stock that came up. And we take that as a positive sign that the villages are hitting the mark in terms of what our residents seek. As at March 31, we had only 1% of our resale stock unsold. The build rate during the year lifted by 42%, and we have 20 new villages either in development or in our land bank. And that gives us a great platform for growth in the years ahead, as you can imagine. We've been keeping a close eye on the housing markets here in Auckland and also in Melbourne, as you'd expect. The market in Melbourne is showing signs of recovery, which is great to see. It's worth noting that the cooling in both markets follows long periods of quite high house price inflation. The fundamentals underpinning both markets are sound, though. New Zealand in particular has a chronic undersupply of housing, which has failed to keep pace with our population growth. This is most acute in Auckland, where we have a large development focus. So, with respect to the current year, we've had a board meeting, as I mentioned, over the last couple of days, and I can advise you today that trading was satisfactory in the first quarter. The development program is weighted towards the second half of the financial year, though. So look, it's now my pleasure to hand over to Gordy McLeod to talk to you about the year from his perspective. Thank you very much.